Welcome to a special Sabbath Mystik meditation session with yours truly, Adrian, Dragon, androgynous pansexual founder of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, laying the foundations for the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom with 718 trillions of kisses. And gotta thank my anonymous friend. We're gonna get a little bit of this wine and cheese. This is wine and we got some cheese. Thank you to my anonymous friend who, if I make $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, I'm gonna give 50% half of this cheese. And proposed a few times, still gotta get some money for proposing. Gonna propose again in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. Guess I got a maybe deadline 2026 April 7th. Keep postponing deadlines and postponing, but maybe I'm gonna do like Joe Biden, ask and ask over and over again until I get a yes. But still gotta get a ring, I guess, special ring, because I got one second hand, but I need to get one made of good platinum, good gold, good diamonds, and that good GODDSS for the Forgotten Goddess Full Moon Special Edition. Thank you to my friend for gifting actually both the wine and the cheese. Health, wealth, strength, regeneration, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and protection, and joy, and health. And all my willingly loving allies and armies pledge your allegiance. It is the Sabbath. It is another warning I got today. Another 4 days until Wednesday. Heat wave continues in Montreal, HAWK, Hawk Island. For the Forgotten Goddess Special Full Moon Edition, wannabe Thelemik Mystik. Aspie artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical independent, geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist, and mystic. Was born many past lives, many incarnations, and I also got 4 olives, 4 little olives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 olives there. So we're gonna start with a little bit of cheese and salute the firefighters, bakers, nurses, doctors, plumbers, electricians, the truckers on the road, train conductors, and ambulance drivers, first responders, and the youth. Main message is HUG, hug like you never hugged before, today with consent. It is the Sabbath until tomorrow, Sunday sunset. When I started recording it, it was exactly 8:44 p.m. EST, Hawk Island, Montreal time. And we're going to discuss some spiritual matters. To life, health, strength, and wealth, and protection, and joy, and regeneration, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and rebirth. To all my allies and armies, pledge your legions for our empire. For the NACWP, let's create, fuse, and create a North American Collective Workers' Party, Phoenix People's Party, and the established together by the signing of a new accordion constitution, the Imperial, Republican, Perpetual Union Constitution of the 10, the 50, and the 3. Always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and for all allies and armies. And gotta send some loving, and somebody's gonna go dancing. And tomorrow's Pride Parade. I thought I was gonna go maybe to circus, maybe next week or in the coming weeks, because I've been wanting to go for 7 years to the after-hour club known as Circus here in Montreal, Hawk Island. So I was planning to go tomorrow, but I think I'm gonna postpone it again because tomorrow's Pride Parade. So I might go to the Pride Parade as a member of the LGBTQ community, being androgynous, pansexual. Always rock and roll for the firefighters, plumbers, electricians, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, those making some good pizzas, preparing some salads, making some fries, serving in the fast food enterprises and establishments and businesses of fast food across the 63. That's some good cheese. We have some good Quebecois cheese here from La Belle Province, Canada, Montreal. In the EST, was born right here as a woman in the past lives, and I lived here as a woman in Quebec, Montreal. Was born right on the island between 1688 and 1735. And I was born in the United States 3 times, post 1776, once as a woman, twice as a man. I served in the same United States Armed Forces 156 years apart, two different wars. The wars were quite a temporal distance between them, 156 years. And here I am making this video, a raw, real, unedited video via this work tool, the smartphone. Gotta salute the Hydro-Quebec workers who built so many hydroelectric dams. We need to build some more, as we're gonna fuse and unite for the Imperial Collective Civilization of Republican Complex. Mystik Special Sabbath Edition. Priestess of the Goddess, dedie is gonna dance tonight and tomorrow. For the full moon, 3-day feast begins today, the full moon, until Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Gonna get some big cleaning of this room off some temple Monday and Tuesday. And I guess by September 11th and / October 31st. And auctioning everything that I'm in possession of here. I really moved here with nothing really. I don't even remember what I had except for my high school diploma, which I have, because my memory gets on that blackout, retrograde amnesia, I have trouble remembering my life prior to February, March, spring 2014 is already more than 11 years and 4 years ago. 11 years and 4 months prior to living in an underground small prison type of, it wasn't really a prison cell, but it was like a small underground prison cell type of basement with lots of mold. And I moved here, came here with nothing really, and struggled, suffered. I have a neurological mental condition known as Asperger's, and has been a tough road with loneliness and losing friends and losing jobs, because among the neurodivergent community, which are, I'm not going to say affected or afflicted, or I'm going to say which are touched by this neurological mental divergent condition known as Asperger's. You know that in our community it's 80%, 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10 are unemployed. So parallel with that, the high depression and suicidal rate, which I survived myself. So anybody going through depression and suicidal rates, I know it's a tough battle. It's a special Mystik special edition, 4-day special heat wave. It's always a dragon versus Trump. Priestess, goddess, got that God bless our coming empire, and goddess kiss, because I got a GODDSS, and I got trillions of kisses credited to all my willing, loving allies and armies. Pledge your allegiance to our family. The first empire to be founded by trillions, 718 trillions of kisses. That's what I got the most, with marching steps and some of that good rock and roll. And always on a fitness journey. My fitness journey always starts today, and I've been on a fitness journey ever since I crossed Canada. I came out of my depression back in 2017 when I crossed Canada. That's what got me out of being depressed and suicidal. Before that, I was depressed, suicidal for a few years, and crossing Canada really made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, who I consider family, Quebecers, as well as my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, and all who come to join us in our coming 21st century Imperial Republic, Imperial Democratic Republic. A mass public-private partnership is required, and I'm going to say, as I do say in my past videos, although today's more spiritual related, full moon related, mystic dream interpretations, and other more spiritual, psychosexual, mystic discussions in this video. But I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019, I got proof of work. I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration back in October 2019, and for that I have proof. But what I did not predict was that there's going to be the deterioration of relations between Canada and the United States, which is worrisome for me, and we need to focus on finding some solutions as the trade war escalates and continues. And we have each other here, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, the Atlantic and the Pacific. Full moon has begun. I have full moon tatted there with the pyramid. Don't ask me when I got these tattoos. And I got Canada. It says Canada, Canada. It says Canada there. I got the moon. This moon, the moon is always full with me. It's always full with the pyramid. And don't ask me when I got that tat, because probably decades ago. And my memories prior to 2014, spring 2014, we're in 2025, summer, August. So that's more than 11 years and 4 months ago. So besides that, I have a very, very, very good memory just of the past years, the years before 2014. It's a bit of a blackouts of memory blackouts of my life prior to 2014. So I came here really with nothing, and I don't think I even have anything that I had except for high school diploma and some letters of recommendation from high school years. I graduated high school long ago, and other such papers of recommendations and some contests, but besides that, so I did others such things I don't. I'm still financially stressed today and always looking for business opportunity and work, especially as my kingdom, our kingdom, requires a mass volunteering and the Dragon Army, which we need to found together as a mass public-private partnership, PPP, parallel with the DGA. Dancing is my favorite sport, and you know Dragon is Adrian, Dragon, General Dragon Zero, and Priestess Hana, HNNA, keep my holy name under your mouth if it's not for a blessing. Still officially yet to change my name because it requires that monies to buy, sell. It's a unit of exchange. And please be charitable if you're in the billionaire sphere. And we need to. I'm not selfish totally. I'm not totally selfless. I try to be balanced for the self and for the other. Asperger's, I have to be more attentive, and I gotta give a shout out again. Thank you to my anonymous friend who gifted me 2 books on Asperger's and autism, and rented 4 times a book from the loan from the library, and I read it, and I recommend to all Aspies or non-Aspies alike. You, the neurotypical is 99.56% compared to us, the 0.44%, since Aspies like myself are less than 1% of the population, about 0.44%, and of course, we constitute this tiny minority with neurodivergence. And Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a book which I recommend to all and opened me to my own vulnerabilities and how my differences can sometimes be vulnerable and open for certain abuse, etc., due to several characteristics, not symptoms, which we possess, such as utilizing too much intellectual, academic, sophisticated, perhaps formal language in certain contexts, or sometimes being too direct or blunt, or might seem abrasive, or not because we mean by volition, by intention. It's just sometimes we might respond in a direct manner and might be seemingly too direct and too offensive, and we might cause offense. We do not mean to. We just have to be told more directly as well, so that we can build these bridges, whether we build small bridges, medium-sized bridges, big bridges, or extra large, I guess. Those bridges, just like when you order a coffee, sometimes coffee or fries, you might order a small coffee, a medium-sized coffee, large coffee, or extra large. So within those 4 categories, there's 3 or 4 other subcategories. So it's always a constant building bridges between us Aspies, the 0.44%, we're less than 1% of the population, so we're a small tiny minority. And you, the 99.56%, with which I have no antagonistic, resentful feelings towards, and just I have hope and great feeling that we'll be able to overcome this tough Armageddon-esque time of Armageddon. I guess I heard Armageddon in the news, and I think my DRT, Death Fusion Theory, is some of the solutions. So I'm not going to focus on that because I discussed it in my past videos, which you can see. I'm just going to focus on spiritual matters, the forgotten goddess, dedicated to the forgotten goddess, and I will to build the forgotten goddess GeoDDSS temple myself. And I'm going to discuss some dreams interpretations and mysteries of the Bible. I guess continues from last week. We're going to continue the mysteries of the Bible, and of course we're going to discuss the mysteries of the Bible plus the forgotten goddess. Leave the baggage at the door. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the questions. There's so many books. I guess we have to start with the Book of the Dead, the pyramid texts. The pyramid texts, I guess they're still there, after 4,500 years, with lots of color on them. Still very colorful. Bury a third of me in the city of the pyramids near Cairo. A third of me at the back of the Belvedere, Conjurenac, my second home, the mountain, Mount Royal, my mistress. A third of me sent over to Hampton, New Jersey with Papa Crowley, Aleister Crowley. The wine is good and strong, and grapes are my favorite fruit, and I enjoy this wine. Thank you to my anonymous friend again for sponsoring this wine and cheese. And thus, if I go viral on this video or my dancing videos and other videos, and if we're gonna give half of everything until 156 billion. Half of everything until 156 billion. Half of everything until 156 billion. Got different types of cheeses. Sometimes I guess if we were to start with holy texts, we'd have to commence with the pyramid texts, which are 4,500 years old, as the spiritual revelations from ancient Egypt. The pyramids are tombs and temples, and of course in the Torah, what's known as the Old Testament, the 5 books of Moses. Of course we have the stories of ancient Egypt, the characters, some lost in translation, some words still are a mystery, such as the paradox that we don't really know what the word name Israel as a surname, as a new name given, actually means. Israel, right? Israel. Jacob, who became Israel. We really don't know the mystery. There's still a mystery to the official meaning and what actually the name means. But of course, if I have to say who was the god / goddess, Geodidss, of Israel, that will be of course another great mystery which we are to delve in, if we are to appellate how we worship, how we meditate, how we relate to spirituality, to mystic understandings of the dynamics of the spiritual evolutionary process, if you will, or the mysteries which have to deal with the reverberations of eternity. As the sun now rises and now sets, every second there's a sunrise and a sunset. Somebody's dreaming now somewhere in the world, and those dreams might have a semi-mystical component, or those dreams might have a psychological or psychosexual dimension. Sometimes in my own dreams I relate to reincarnations and past lives, and one of my favorite poems is Through a Glass Darkly, George Patton's Through a Glass Darkly, where he discusses reincarnations, and he didn't mention that he was my wife because he only mentioned his male reincarnations, but across from the writing of the pyramid mystic spiritual hieroglyphs of the pyramid text to now, I've been sometimes born a man, sometimes a woman, a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a man, a woman, a man, a man, a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, until now you get that 50-50. I am androgynous. And my spirituality of today, the month of Leo, heat wave for the next 4 days. 4 days until Wednesday. It's hot today. And full moon today, for 3-day full moon feast for me. And I want to be Thelemite. I still have to decipher and learn and meditate and get some lightning and some flashes of revelations of the great prophet Alistair Crowley, aka Perdurabo, the Papa Dog Granddaddy Pops, Alistair Crowley, and all the other mystics throughout the 20th century and the decades and millennia, Kabbalists and great Kabbalistic masters and great mystic masters and founders of the 20th century of new occult Western philosophies and spiritual mystic understandings, such as, of course, perhaps there's a little bit of spirituality and mystic in the hippie movement, I guess. What we call pagan as well. What we call pagan as well, I guess, what we call pagan. But the pagans also had the goddess. The pagans also had the goddess. Geodidss, the goddess. Geodidss. as it's a God bless our coming empire, and Goddess kiss. God and Goddess. Sometimes I do respond to others when engaged and somebody says God bless. Don't be shocked if I might respond by the word Goddess. G-O-D-D-E-S-S, Goddess. The Goddess of many names, of which I am just a piece of dust. Who rocks and rolls, who lusts, who has fleshly desires, who has plenty of scars and suffered, struggled, was viciously attacked by surprise and was bloodied up, and all the trauma of the past and all the regeneration and healing of the past years, and the joy of doing this video today. And although financially stressed, and gotta give a thank you again to my anonymous friend for the cheese, wine and cheese edition, special Mystik edition, priestess of the goddess Hannah, 2-in-1 Dragon Zero, Adrian Hannah Dragon. Where the priestess is at, where my fellow brothers who can say the word goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S. Whether the goddess whose name starts with an A or a B, 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 or a C, 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 or a D, or a E, or what, maybe the whole alphabet, A to O, A to T, at it, is the whole word of the goddess. Dreams sometimes can reflect on our states, desires, hidden fears, hidden flesh, desires, hidden lusts, hidden trauma, hidden psychological dimensions which we have, or even memories can come back through dreams, right? Through dreams. Sometimes I guess I dream and I said, wow, what was that? Was that a memory from my life before 2014, spring 2014, and whatever the memory was before 2014, and it's something which we have to appellate and we have to include, and we have of course to be mindful about, and to of course categorize in whatever the dimensions are, whether we get that mystic informations or not, and we get of course the appellations to be and inclusive, and to get of course doing and our doings and our sexuality. Of course sometimes it's whether we're, for my fellow lesbians, gays, or part of the LGBTQ community or not, or related to the LGBTQ community, since it's Pride Parade tomorrow, or if you're still in the closet, as I don't gamble, but there should be at least 6% of all the 5,000 sports, male sports athletes in the 4 major sports leagues of the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Mass. Imagine 4 major sports leagues, there's about 5,000 athletes. Out of the 5,000, today in 2025, there's not even one out in the open. So you can imagine that a lot are in the closet. So in other words, you could say, but you're in the closet, but are you a liar? Are you a liar? Are you, or not truthful, or don't want to come out of the closet? So that I'm going to not discuss on that. But statistically, there should be many out of the 5,000, because if it's 6% of Gen Z, Gen Z, and millennials, Gen Z is more, is about 8%. Millennials is about 6%. Who are LGBTQ out of the total population. So I also say out of the 5,000 in the 4 major sports leagues of North America, Canada, US, there should be at least, if it's 6%, that means out of 100, at least 6, right? So 60 times 5, there should be at least 300. Statistically, out of the 5,000, there should be at least 300 LGBTQ players out of the 4. Not even one is in the open. So who's lying, me or you? 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 Just give to charity, give to LGBTQ communities, neurodivergent communities, and help me build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, and with the Dragon Army and the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army. Dancing is my favorite sport, as I will to create the Imperial Integrated Republican Dance League. Pure Republic's integrated dance league, the dance league for environmental purposes and dancing for pleasure and environmental education and action, the DGA Dancing Goddess Army, and give to charity for women's sports leagues, especially for the PVHL, PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League, and women's basketball. And that would compensate for all those 300 around estimated 300 LGBTQ players in the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, the National Football League, National Hockey League, MLB, Major League Baseball, or NBA, National Basketball Association. Out of those four, there's 5,000 players about, so there should be at least 300. So I guess that will compensate if you give charity. Sexuality aside is a merger some people worship, you know. For me, physical pleasure, the body being a temple for pleasure and purpose, and you got the incorporation of sexuality in spiritual practices as well, which requires anybody want to commission. I will do a video an hour just on that specific topic. But you have several occult, mystic, esoteric, spiritual practices, which include what can be deemed in some philosophies tantric practices, or other practices is ritual, spiritual sexuality, and others, right? It could be incorporated in such practices as we have of a more sexual nature. But for me, one of my spiritual, psychological, physical mottos is the body. This body, the B-O-D-Y, the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. And so how do we incorporate it? And myself, I don't will to waste nobody's time, you know. I have Asperger's, so I don't have a lot of friends, but it's pledge your allegiance, legions, to our family, or friends with benefits only, you know. If you want to rock and roll, it's friends with benefits only, you know. Friends with benefits only. For me, you gotta be an adult, though 18 plus. I'm gonna card you just like when you go get some wine, you get carded, or when you go to a club, you get carded, which just when you go to, here we have that cannabis, legal marijuana. Cannabis is legal from 2019 onwards. It's been legalized since 2019. Cannabis, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, across Canada, federally. And of course, I'm going to apply the same principles. You got to get carded if you want to love with me. If you're black, white, black, or rainbow, man or woman, you know, I'm part of the LGBTQ community. We can do that dancing, gridiron, North American football, hot. We can do that good loving, but don't want to waste anybody's time, you know. Friends with benefits only. I'm pretty happy, pretty joyous. I financially stressed, but paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, paid my phone bill. So paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, paid my phone bill. Those bills are paid. I got some change for food and coffee and some club soda too, and some wafers, because I love those wafers, you know. So I incorporate them in my spirituality. And eating is also can be a spiritual pursuit. So now I do a meditation on how the matter and the processes of producing this cheese, thank you to the goats or the cows, you know, for the milk production, and whether it's goats, cow milk, or goat milk. There is a spiritual part in eating. So eating can be a spiritual pursuit, or enable us to do spiritual meditations, or give pleasure, help somebody, which in that practical help, it's also a spiritual currency in many ways, right? When you do charity, good deeds, good action, good deeds, charity, volunteering, and giving charity, volunteering as much as you can, whatever XYZ, that also adds to a spiritual currency. But I'm not perfect, and I don't claim to be enlightened or have a elevated spiritual hierarchical position. I don't. I rock and roll, and my spirituality is rock and roll, and I lust, I have cravings of the body. I don't make the pretense to be neither too spiritual and also physical. It's fusion of those, because the philosophy, my philosophy is that the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose, so, but also to give to somebody else, whether giving a massage, a foot bath, or doing groceries, doing any action to help somebody else is also spiritual, for adds, that is, in spiritual currency, acts of goodness and kindness, that is. So this is really good. All of them are good, but this one is and this wine is divine. Now back to the Bible. Before we go back to the Bible, we're gonna interject on dreams. So dreams can form a mystical, spiritual experience, and also a psychological, psychosexual one. Sometimes it's future events, sometimes it's memories from the past life. I believe there can be hints, memories from past lives being passed down spiritually in the dream, or components which are about to happen, to occur. So some of my dreams in the past 2 weeks, 11 days, let's say, were me and my anonymous friend kind of either moving or traveling somewhere, and there were these 4 distinct body of water. Some of them were running water, some of them were more stagnant, some of them was clear, and some of them were like muddy a bit. So it was kind of 4 body of waters, and the water symbolized, of course, it could be symbolized transformation, change. If it's running water, change, or progress even, or breaking through barriers, I guess, because the flood can break through barriers, right? Like a flood, or the rapid river, like here Hawk Island, Montreal is a big metropolis island. Montreal is an island, and I was born in past lives several times on this island. Now is my home in this one, as it was in my past previous incarnations, as all the Canada and the United States, both countries, were in previous incarnations. This is my home now, Hawk Island, Montreal, the headquarters of our coming Publik and Thelemik Empire of Thelema, or Empire. Pledge allegiance to our family. We're surrounded by a big river. I call it's St. Lawrence officially. I call it Snake River. Snake, like the snake. The snake. Of course, we have snake symbolism in the Bible as well. Now, dreaming about snakes, that could be something different if you have, depending on the relation. But nonetheless, if you dream of a flood or running water, it could be breaking through certain barriers and obstacles, I would say that would apply for me to finally, after many years of being told, and several citizens with some health care professions and experience in the healthcare system, experience in healthcare have told me that I have Asperger's, that I have HFA, high functioning autism. But more than 8-9 years ago, I've been told by several citizens, and I never wanted to really accept it because it's kind of a label, until about 3.5 years ago, about 3 years and a half, 44 months ago, I have accepted, yes, I do have Asperger's, and I have to manage these characteristics and always circumvent. But of course, being an Aspie, I'm also a mystic, and also an artist, an athlete, and an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, thinker, philosopher, and strategist. So that doesn't impede my consequential involvement in mystic spiritual pursuits or practices. And I have a ritual-like routines. I do my full moon by that book of the law. It's my central spiritual book, along with many books from the pyramid texts from ancient Egypt and the biblical texts and all the other books. There's a book mentioned in the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is a ancient spiritual mystic book. Book of the Dead. There's a book mentioned in this Book of the Dead called the Book of the Bennu, sometimes of the Bennu bird, related to the Bennu bird, phoenix in many ways. It mentions knowledge of future events, said the book of millions of years. It's of course God of millions of years. And in that book it says, I know what was yesterday, what is today, and what will be tomorrow. It's a mystical book, but we don't know exactly where that book is. That book is mentioned in the Book of the Dead. That book is mentioned in the Book of the Dead as a mystic esoteric name. So supposedly in that book there was information if you want to know the future. And the Book of the Dead is several versions, but the one that is called from the papyrus of, I guess, Annee, A-N-Y or A-N-I. That was the name of the individual, and it's about 3,300 years old, so it's more than 3 millennia old. And of course, if we go to the Bible, we get, of course, I mentioned in the past mystical relation, I mentioned again, the God Goddess of Israel, Jacob who became Israel, that in Genesis chapter 50, you have written there that Israel was embalmed, and their rites of embalmment were the 40-day ritual rite of embalmment took 40 days, and the mourning rites took 70 days. That the Egyptians mourned Israel 70 days, and embalming procedure lasted 40 days, and this 40 days reoccurs. So that is the 40-day embalmment ritual procedure. But there's only one, not a problem per se, because it's not a problem for me, but if Israel, Jacob, was embalmed, that means that the physicians, the mystic, religious, spiritual mystics, because these physicians were mystics, were spiritual physicians, right? They had a spiritual component, and during the embalming process, the invocation and the ritual dedicated to both God and goddesses, gods and goddesses were invoked, and would have had to be ritualized invocations of these deities and goddess specific, or one of the manifestations, the attributes of the supreme goddess as it comes to embalmment, or one of the manifestations of the supreme God when it comes to embalmment, the ancient Egyptian god goddess, supreme god, supreme goddess, god and goddess, G-O-D and G-O-D-D-S-S. So that embalmment was a spiritual mystic practice, but it was only done in that point in time to more certain hierarchies, certain nobles and scribes and pharaohs and priests and such. But there was a condition overall, regardless of wealth and status and nobility and hierarchy. The condition was that the deceased had to be of the same religion, spiritual mystic religion and belief, as the ancient Egyptians, as the physicians. Otherwise they would have not embalmed. So thus the goddess of Israel was the same god goddess of the pharaoh of the ancient Egyptians, as it is in the Bible. Otherwise Israel would have not been embalmed. You understand? My rights for my death, I want them according to the Book of the Law. I wouldn't mind the Book of the Dead and the Book of the Law combined, Ancient Egyptian rights, today, 21st century, high-tech, freeze my brain, put its satellite, Skylink high. Put me throughout the super 21st century intranet, inter-supernet. Fuse me with AI, I guess, with the sun and the stars, as it was believed by the soul of the deceased to be. That's why the 40 days was a whole ritual rites. So that is just the mystic revelation that Jacob, who became Israel and who kept asking, what is your name, God? What is your name, God? The mystic relations of the names of God or goddess in the ancient Egyptian is also a spiritual mystic initiatory, initiates to know the names of God. However, the names of God, goddess again, was. But nonetheless, it's written in Genesis chapter 50. In Genesis chapter 50 that Israel, Jacob was embalmed, and they took the 40 days of the embalming procedure, and that was 3,500 years ago. So if that 3,500 years ago was taken to be that procedure, that means of course that it was only due to the fact that that was the fact, and the fact was that it had to be of the same religious beliefs as the pharaohs, as the Egyptians, as the ancient Egyptians, as the physicians who performed who were spiritual physicians as well, because they had to invoke. It was a whole ritual and physical procedure, the embalming procedure. So they only, it would have, point is, it would have only been done if that person was of the same spiritual religious belief. Otherwise, it would have not been done. So that is just the revelation, the mystical revelations. As of course the pyramids still remain up to today. So Jacob Israel had to be of the same religious, mystical belief, creed, C-R-E-E-D, creed, C-R-E-E-D, the creed, the spiritual beliefs, as the ancient Egyptians, as the pharaohs, as the embalmers. Otherwise, Jacob Israel would have not been embalmed by the physicians. It would have not been accorded these rites, ritual rites of the deceased, this special 40-day rites and rituals of embalming, which had a mystical, spiritual component to the physical, actual practice of removal of the organs in a mystical, spiritual way, with God, goddess invocation and assistance by these gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt. So that is all, that's the truth there. So that is the spiritual mystic revelation revealed now on the full moon of August in the month of Leo by Adrian Hana Dragon, reborn right here in this room of Sun Temple, with some new revelations. My new revelations is rock and roll, and with consent, H-U-G, hug like you never hugged before, you know. With consent, the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. So body is so sacred, it's a temple. But that point remains, that Jacob Israel from the Bible, as is written in the Bible, in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, that Jacob Israel was embalmed, and that the 40-day rites, according to the ancient, the 40-day embalming rite was accorded, that Jacob Israel was embalmed by the physician and even mourned by the Egyptians. So the mourning, embalming, 40-day rite, mystical, ritual embalming procedures were mystic. It took 40 days, and then the mourning event took 70 days. 70 days. So more than 2 months. So that only means, and that's the spiritual revelation, mystic revelation, that Jacob Israel had to be, at least according to the ones who embalmed, the physicians, because they performed those rites, rituals which were mystical, and the invocation of those deities for Jacob, for Israel. That's just the spiritual revelation. You cannot argue with that, because it's written in the Bible, it's written in the Torah. So however those mystic 40 days developed fully, that was more than 3,500 years ago, with chanting and removing of the bodies, the organs, and the life, and the force, and the invocation of the deities, consequent deities attributed, and the god and the goddess. That is just what remains. So the goddess, whether the supreme god, deity, and the goddess, or the different faces of the goddess, or one of the manifestation of the god and the goddess, is also related to the number 42 in the Bible. And thus we have the 42 journeys, which is written in the Bible, 42 journeys, encampments, and journeys, encampments of the ancient Israelites as part of the so-called, what we call as the Exodus. A few hundred years after Jacob Israel was embalmed, and the arrival of the mystic Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. And then you go to Moses and Pharaoh's daughter's relationship with the Pharaoh's daughter, and the Pharaoh's daughter, and of course Solomon, King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, Solomon, who is a paradox in 1 Kings 1:3, 1 Kings 1:3, and 1 Kings, the book of Kings, 1 Kings chapter 1:3. It's mentioned in the same verses. King Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon made a marriage alliance by marrying Pharaoh's daughter, and it's mentioned that he built both his house and the temple of God, the first temple in Zion in Jerusalem, city of David. So again, beg the question, how come King Solomon marries Pharaoh's daughter if the Exodus was about leaving Egypt and never coming back? There's something missing. There's something lost in translation. And of course, we have historically that the ancient Egyptian conquest, the conquest of Canaan by the ancient Egyptians, by Ramses. Ramses conquered Canaan. Ramses conquered Canaan, right? It's Canaan, and there was an ancient Egyptian conquest of Canaan. So this mystery, the God, goddess of Israel, and our biblical texts and the putting together, I guess, of what we have is the 5 books of Moses and the Bible and the Torah, as we have them today, consequently, to have them in the input of all our daily activities and rights, and how we interact with our spiritual well-being and civilizational complex as we are today in 2025. And we have great technological evolution and spiritual evolution. The sun still shines and rises and sets every second and every day, and we still have, of course, the earth still revolves around the sun, and I guess still dances with the sister, the goddess still dances with her brother the sun. I guess it's in that dance, create, make, and everything, all the products, the food that we eat, they enjoy from the black fertile earth, and my enjoyment here to enjoy this cheese, and could be a bit rock and rollish about my spiritual understandings and search, and still every day spiritual growth and discoveries of new appellations and new mysteries and new follies sometimes. So a lot of the things we don't know, a lot of the things we have to say that they're mysterious, such as the name Israel and the mystery of Moses' sister Miriam. Hanaviyah in Hebrew is called, the translation is prophetess. It's called the prophetess. And then other mistranslations, when it comes to Tamar, the word holy, the word prostitute, there's no prostitute, and there's not the word for prostitute or whore there. The word is not for a loose woman or a whore. It's not that at all. The word comes from holy, kedusha, from kadosh, from holy. So there's a lot of mistranslations in the Bible. And of course, the mystical understandings, because such as the embalming procedure was a mystical point for the body to transition, the body and the soul to transition, and of course the ancient Egyptian afterlife. And that's related to the 42, number 42 again, 42 journeys or 42 encampments of the ancient Israelites vis-a-vis the 42 laws, spiritual mystic laws of the ancient Egyptians, whence one ancient Egyptian citizen had to behold and had to keep to the best of the abilities, and had to maintain. And of course the priests and the pharaohs and the ancient Egyptians were relegated to withhold such a new law and order type of mystic hierarchical law and order is related to those 42, what are called the 42 journeys in the Bible. So there is some truth and there is some fiction. And there's some fiction and there's some truth. And of course, some truth and some fiction, some truth in the fiction and some fiction in the truth. If you are to fully comprehend our Western, well, not necessarily Western per se, but our common spiritual traditions and their origins from ancient Egypt, that to the fact that the pyramids remained, and for me the pyramids are tombs and temples, and that's my spiritual temple. I guess it's here, Montreal, the mountain, Mount Royal. For me personally, it's Mount Royal, the whole island. It's the whole spiritual headquarters, the whole island of Montreal, and the mountain per se, Mount Royal, but also the pyramids. So relegating again to the importance of the embalmment procedures back in that time, you can only say and read Genesis chapter 50 for yourself, that is definitely a mystery, which sometimes it's, as we have learned more in the past century and still learn more in the past century about ancient Egypt, as we live and learn more about ancient Egypt today, with new discoveries every day, and the hieroglyphs and the temples and tombs and the pyramids and other discoveries, that of course the sacred embalmment procedure, ritual procedures, which lasted 40 days, was sacred and divine, and it had to be that the deceased, who was accorded the 40-day ritual mystic spiritual procedures, had to be of the same spiritual, religious, mystic belief as the embalmers, the physicians themselves, which they were of the ancient Egyptian religion, as it's written that the physicians of the Pharaoh embalmed Jacob Israel. Thus Jacob Israel had to be of the same spiritual religion, the same mystic belief, spiritual and religious, the same God and Goddess of those physicians who embalmed him, and of the ancient Egyptians of that time, and of the Pharaoh, of course. So the whole mystical relation of the whole Exodus, we can point it to a universal type of relation of maintaining this harmony and balance of goodness and kindness, and certain acts such as to not commit violence, to not steal, to not do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D of harmful things to others, can also be seen as an universal point of law and morality and ethics. We can, really in the 21st century today we can bring it in the 21st century. Today now, we can bring it in the 21st century today now. Of course, the insurance of something new under the sun, Mr. King Solomon has got the freedom here, which has to be insured. My liberty, my freedom has to be insured, and we have to be the coming empire of the free, the strong, the brave, also the loving, and also the righteous, the just, who do some charity, who do some justice, so give somebody else, my brothers and sisters, rehabilitation and second, third, even fourth chances, who do turn their life around. That's always something which I gotta applaud and say, somebody who has been through pain, blood, sweat, suffered, and turns the life around from that. That's always something good which has to be admired. And as much as it requires, this body is a temple for pleasure and purpose, I can definitely use a massage therapy session, but gonna take a bath tonight or tomorrow which is gonna compensate, and calling on the millionaires, billionaires to finance the public sanitation workers and the firefighters of both Canada and United States over the 10, the 50, and the 3 of their coming 63 of our empire. Finance them a regular weekly spa and massage therapy sessions because they deserve it and they earn it. And also pick up the garbage. Also, I got sanitation workers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the farmers, the plumbers, the doctors, construction workers. Got to salute. Got to raise my cup, of course, for the workers a bit. Now for the truckers on the road who might be less or more spiritual, might have different spiritual beliefs, but you know, they supplement and they're super important on the roads now across the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, Canada, United States, even from Mexico, and carrying all our goods, the cheese, so much cheese now, maybe X, Y, Z, X, W, A, B, C, D, so much kilos of cheese crossing now Montreal, Hawk Island metropolis of 2.5 million people going east, west, north, south. Maybe from Texas, California, and Quebec, British Columbia, all the way east, west, north, south. Transporting cheese, bacon, wine, bread, butter, milk, all the goods that we ingest, that we take on our daily routines and habits as we have. And cheers to that. Cheers to the truckers, love to the truckers and the youth. It's Sabbath until tomorrow's sunset. It's Sunday sunset. It's Sabbath end. So today's Saturday. I'm gonna watch some movies, some news, some geopolitics. Gonna meditate, gonna stretch, and maybe start watching Umbrella Academy Chapter 3 because I've been wanting to watch it for a long time now. And that's always something which I'm grateful that I'm gonna be able to watch. And I guess it's a little bit of spiritualness and those moon salutations. I did them yesterday, do them today. If I see the moon, when I go water the plants. If not, tomorrow night, because it's a full moon 3 days. So that's always something which I gotta be mindful about. That the goddess, matter, the holiness of matter. Eating is a spiritual process or enables spirituality. It might even be the most spiritual activity we are engaged in. It might not be visibly so, but revelationally, internally, it might be, because it enables our sustenance, our body. And by eating, by being healthy, we can help others, we can work, and we can help maintain the 42 certain justice and order. Whether we go by 42 principles, and those 42 principles can be elaborated on, or 5 major principles of ensuring liberty as Crowley's liberals, Crowley's liberals, Crowley's liberals, Crowley's liberals, hasta Crowley's liberals. Other such matters of an interesting point of perspective of where we are today in the love, in the life, in the light, and healing as well, and accepting the physicality of the body, accepting of course the sexual liberation. Tomorrow's Pride Parade for my fellow LGBTQ community. And I gave a lecture, a discourse about the spirituality of the LGBTQ community, how, if I could do a resume, how it can be very intense and concentrated. That's why still out across the world, when you have pride parades, there's still a lot of tensions, because the expressions of dancing in such a manner, some call it lewd, L-E-W-D, lewd, L-E-W-D, 4 letters, L-E-W-D, lewd, L-E-W-D, but of course I dance it with that twerking as well, and that contains high spiritual energies. So that sexual liberation as well contains high spiritual energies, which sometimes they're so high and powerful that it can cause intention that somebody might receive it in a negative way. The reception of it. Might be negative. Might be negative. Right. Might be seem negative. You know, if I'm the Pride Parade and I'm kissing and hugging two different people, I guess a man and a woman on both sides, because I'm pansexual, you know. I go both ways. Men and women, woman and man, black and white and rainbow. Third gender, if you will, whatever gender expression, you know. I guess I gotta go. I'm 50-50. I'm not like the Wachowski brothers who became sisters. I'm not like the Wachowski brothers who is now sister. The creators of the Matrix I'm referring to. The Wachowski brothers are now sisters, right? They're trans women. Wachowski sisters. I guess Larry became Lana and I became Lena, something like that. Gotta double check. Nonetheless, I have it from a few years ago, that lecture, I think 3 years ago, maybe 4. The intense spiritual lights of a Pride Parade that exists in a Pride Parade. So when you see, sometimes the Pride Parade, you know, you see the dancing is kind of energetic but also sexual, right? And that's liberation, like sexual liberation, right? But it can be for others who still struggle with their sexuality in many ways. Maybe I'm not fully 100% healed myself, but I'm pansexual. I have been open for years and years and years, more than 7 years now, since 2017. But I'm not sexually frustrated. I'm just looking for friends with benefits. But if I would be, I guess I would discuss it. If I would be sexually frustrated, I don't have any sexual partners at the moment, but if I would be sexually frustrated, I would discuss it openly, even on YouTube. I wouldn't shy myself from not discussing. I'm just pansexual. I like BDSM switch, and you no need to blackmail me. Secret police of China, secret police of Russia, Musa. I'm gonna cuckold you. Priestess Hannah's gonna cuckold you. Priestess Hannah's gonna cuckold you. Priestess Hannah's gonna cuckold you. I guess I'm a CUCK sometimes myself, but when I am a cuck, I guess I try to be the best cuck I can be, you know. But there's the high intensity of a Pride Parade. It can be very intense, you know. The energies are very intense, so it's always about channeling, not repressing the energies. Channeling, sublimating, 2 keywords of my philosophies, whether aggression also. Aggression and sexuality, and I don't like violence myself. I don't like violence, but I guess intensity I have, concentration, and I'm super intense, super focused, sometimes super intense, but I don't like violence. I do not like violence, and aggression, sexuality has to be channeled and sublimated in sports and fitness and dancing sexually, I guess. When I dance, I guess I sublimate my sexuality in dancing, and I guess to a certain point the aggression, I guess, but I don't like violence. I am for channeling, and I'm somebody who doesn't like violence, but it's channeling, you know. Sublimation are 2 keywords of my philosophies, and it's important to do so. But because otherwise, if we repress, we become sick and ill, you know. Makes us sick and ill. So I gotta be grateful for the things and of today and to do tomorrow, and of course all the things that we hope to achieve together as individual sovereign citizens. Myself, part of our coming empire, which the individual sovereign citizens will is sacrosanct, is our common collective will for sacrosancting the individual will in a mystic spiritual way, where the temple is the body and our bodies are temples for pleasure and purpose. For pleasure and purpose, our body, I guess this is the summon bonum to retain of my spiritual teachings, all the blah blah blah, that the body is sacred for pleasure and purpose, to give and to receive. To give and to receive. To give and to receive in whatever shape, performance of whatever the case may be that we have together in the common joint manifestation of our coming of our Thelemik non-sectarian empire, Thelemik non-sectarian empire. So for the goddess, forgotten goddess, dedie says, let's build the forgotten goddess temple together. And salutations for the Sabbath. For the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, truckers, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, our youth, the doctors, train conductors on the road, construction workers, and the farmers, the bakers, those in the fast food, flipping some burgers, some cheeseburgers right now, you know, doing that work, that arbeit. And it's Adrian on a dragon laying the foundations of them. The dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom with trillions of kisses. And for my allies and armies, pledge your legions, friends with benefits only. Full moon special right, and a little bit of a freestyle, raw, real, unedited, and rock and roll style, and mystic spiritual philosophies.